Well, I'm Chuck Maddux. I'm 77 years old. I've been retired for 11 years, and I really never gave much thought to aging in place before I retired. It's not to say that I didn't, like everyone else, put aside money for retirement, but as far as aging itself, I didn't give it a lot of thought. But then I think about 3 years before I retired, I had the rude awakening of standing on a ladder at the house doing some work, and I suddenly couldn't stay up there. And I'm the guy that used to climb a ladder, hang on with 2 fingers with a paintbrush in the other hand, and it never bothered me. So now I'm thinking, wow, I can't do this. So it gave me pause to think about, and that's all it did. And then maybe a year later, other things came about. I mean, I used to love to work around the house as long as it's, wasn't anything that I didn't have to hire somebody for. But the usual tinkering and cutting grass and that type of thing. I couldn't do some of those things. My eyesight was in trifocals, and so my finger looked like a nail once in a while. Then I had to really talk to Judith, my wife, and say, I don't know if I want to stay here. Also, I guess we were fortunate enough that at that time, there were 2 people here that go to our church. And they asked us to come to Becketwood and have dinner with them, which we did. And we looked around, and the meal was wonderful. The place looked magnificent. But as we drove away, Judith says to me, what do you think? And I said, I think it's really nice. But I don't know if I want to go over there right now. I just don't think that that's going to be a place for us at this point in our life. But I said, he mentioned that they have a waiting list. And I said, I think we ought to get on the waiting list, because if we change our mind a year from now or 3 years from now, I don't want to start at that point on what we're going to do. And that's how we got introduced to this. And it was very immediate that we were going to have some changes, just like everybody. We had to downsize, which is to a certain degree, I think, horrible for everybody to us, because now you're making choices. What am I going to keep this that I've had for however long? But it worked, just like it works for everybody that comes in here after a while. And so that was very good. The other thing that we found out was that this is not just a place to age in place, it's a community itself. I mean, there are people here who are very honestly willing to help you, to be your friend, to have discussions. You can stay busy or not busy, depending on what you want to do. We discovered the name Cooperative. You should do something when you move in here to help facilitate everything. I think the one big awakening for me was to realize that in all the places that Judith and I have lived, we may have known 2-3 people on the block, or in your church groups, which don't change. At least for us, it didn't change. But here, you get involved in what you want to get involved in, and you learn that you don't really have to be committed for the rest of the time you're here. Right or wrong, I joined a committee right away, and I enjoyed it. And then suddenly, I was assigned something that I had done for a living for 40 years or more, and I couldn't do it. I just said, this I can't do. I don't want to do. I mean, I did it for so long, and now I'm doing the same thing all over again. And so I did find another committee to join, which I enjoy. I got involved in the recycling for the floor. There's things that people can do all over. You can have a garden, or you don't have. You can help clean up or not clean. For us, or at least particularly for me, my wife is the same way, but I'm not going to speak for her here. But I just think that when I started off having some doubts, it suddenly turned into being an absolute wonderful place to be. I can stay here as long as I possibly can, just like everybody else. If it gets to be something that you're having hospice, you can have hospice here. If you get something else that maybe is Alzheimer's or something, then no, maybe you can't stay here. But you'd be faced with the same thing in your home, only I think it would be twice as hard, because then you're surrounded by things you've been surrounded with, let's say, for 30 years. And now suddenly you don't know what's going on anymore. And maybe you don't hear. I mean, I just find the place really nice. I'd recommend it, and I have recommended it to a lot of people, because we all are aging. You can't stop that. Well, you could, but that's how I enjoy this place. And I just think it's a wonderful place to be at this time of my life. One one of the things that I should have mentioned was something when we first moved in. I mean, I'm kind of I was in sales for a lot of years, and yet I'm an introvert. And so they would say, well, we have all these excursions you can go on with all these people. And I'm thinking, excursion? I mean, to me, a great day is walking in the woods with my camera, and I don't see anybody. That's not to say that I'm antisocial. I still like to do things with people. For me to get away, in my mind, that's my getaway. I don't want to go with 4 or 5 people or 10 people or 20 people. And yet, that changed within 6 months I was here. And that's my wife pushing me to say, hey, we're going to go see this, so let's go see what it's all about. And now I enjoy doing that. Otherwise, if you're in an apartment building or a condo, because you want to downsize as you get older anyway, but yet you don't know all those people if it's not one of these type of situations. And so you're by yourself now. So I really enjoy it. There's another fellow at our church that lives here, he and his wife. I have a lot of respect. He was sitting out here in the dining room one morning with his laptop, and I went up to him and I said, can I ask you a question about Becketwood? Because we're thinking about coming over here. And he said, yeah. I said, how is it? And he just looked at me and he said, it's really nice. And it's like everything else in life, Chuck. Give a little and get a little. So you can't just walk in here and say everything's going to be perfect or whatever. And he said, you can live with that, can't you? And I said, yeah, I can. Because if it would have been something drastic, he would have said so. I thought it was kind of a nice answer, for me anyway. But I really think that it's the caring of the people here and the way that they all do something that makes this place just, for me, I just think this is really nice.